Welcome to Living Legacy Leadership, where we explore, discover, and share insights, tools, and strategies for a life well lived into elderhood. I'm your host, Donna Kim Brand, author, speaker, legacy strategy coach, and creator of the concept Living Legacy, where you choose to live life on your own terms while contributing to people, places, and projects along your life journey. I believe that the life you live is the legacy you leave. Now, the guests I bring to you each week all address some unique aspect of learning, leadership, or legacy. This helps you raise your own game as a leader in business and life, and also showcases some extraordinary people who exemplify living legacy leadership. At least once a month, I also offer a training session to skill you in game changer thinking for your own application. So get your notebook ready or sharpen up your memory by tuning in your attention, and we'll dive right in. Now, we are very honored today to have a well-established author, Jill McCorkle, with us. She's being featured this year at the Miami Book Fair, along with her latest book called Hieroglyphics. Now, Jill McCorkle's first two novels were released simultaneously when she was just out of college, so she was quick out of the gate. And the New York Times called her a born novelist. Since then, she's published 4 additional novels and 4 story collections, and her work has appeared in Best American Short Stories several times, as well as the Norton Anthology of Short Fiction. 5 of her books have been New York Times notable books, and one of her recent novels, Life After Life, was a New York Times bestseller. She's received innumerable book awards and has written for the New York Times Book Review, which I love, the Washington Post, the Boston Globe, the Atlantic, Gone and Garden, and other publications. In addition to that, she's been a lecturer in fiction at Harvard University, where she also chaired the Department of Creative Writing. She's currently a faculty member of the Bennington College Writing Seminars, affiliated with the MFA program at North Carolina State University. And as I mentioned today, we're going to introduce you to her latest novel, as I said, Miami Book Fair featured book and author, called Hieroglyphics. So welcome, Jill.
Thank you so much, Donna. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you. You know, reading through your book was literally, I mean, you called it hieroglyphics, and if you think about what hieroglyphics are, the symbols that have meaning within a certain context and how they're all woven together, it was like that, a mental puzzle that required paying attention and following the threads until they sort of came to an interesting conclusion. So, wow. Can you share with our listeners what's the premise of the story?
Yes, of course. There are 4 different point of view characters. The 2 of them, an elderly couple who have been married for 50 years, and they've now retired from New England to North Carolina. And what they have in common and what brought them together in their relationship is they both lost a parent in childhood to a catastrophic event, a real train wreck that happened in my native county in North Carolina, and the Coconut Grove nightclub fire that happened in Boston. And so as a result, both of them sort of got stopped in childhood with a big before and after moment where they've been left to spend their lives wondering things about their parents, about the lives of their parents, while also tending to their own lives. And one of the wife, Lil, at this, when the novel opens, is basically going back through all of her journals, notes, scraps of things she saved in an attempt to basically put her life together, editing it in certain ways, depending on what she wants her children to know. When you mentioned about your program, you know, the life you live is your legacy, I think that really speaks to Lil's character in a major way, and in a lot of ways her husband Frank as well. And then I have a young single mother and her 6-year-old son, Shelley and Harvey, both in not such a great place, again, because of things in the past that have happened. So all the characters share the need to grapple with something that happened in the past and doing it in very different ways. I think of it as a novel that's very much about memory and how, you know, we're all haunted by certain things we either did or did not do.
Exactly. And what's also cool to me in your whole psychological spin on how for each of those points of view, based on things that happened in the past, they're living them out in the present, but also concerned about the impact or effect they're going to have on themselves and people around them in the future. And how people might, and how people might deal with their precious memories. Will they be meaningful? Will they have any attachment to them? Will they explain things in their present life? Or will they, as you said, just throw them in the dumpster?
Right. Yes. I mean, it was a difficult place to begin a novel, because what I really was thinking about is all that potentially gets lost along the way. You know, messages and memories that without some explanation might not be decipherable to those who are left with it.
Exactly. And your character, Lil, you know, she's very deep and observant, as you are. Said at one point she felt like a big antenna picking up static and signals of others.
Mm-hmm.
So are you like that? Because the amount of detail and mixture of both historic and probably imaginal input in your book is incredible.
Yes. Well, thank you. You know, I think that as a writer, I certainly fancy myself that way. Now, whether or not I get it right, that would be another question. But I think that as a writer, I am tuned in to observing those I witness. And I always tell my students, you know, that if they walk around every day with eyes and ears open, they can't possibly live long enough to write all of the stories they will witness. But again, that doesn't mean they get it right. You know, I often see two people in conversation, and from body language or expressions, I might imagine what the conversation entails. And that's a very exciting part about writing for me. You know, just following my own imagination.
Exactly. So you have the fascinating, I guess, life or lifestyle of being both an acclaimed writer in your own right, but you're also teaching others how to do it. So I don't know whether you teach the same way that you actually approach your writing, but how do you get your ideas? What comes first? Is it some characters? Is it maybe a snippet, like you just said, you overheard a conversation? And then do you let it unfold organically, or do you plan everything out?
I do not plan everything out. I was that kid in school that if we were ever assigned, you know, a term paper where you had to have note cards and an outline, I was more likely to write the paper and then do the outline and the note card. So it's been a little bit backwards for me. But very often I am attracted to the voice of a character. But in this particular case, I was also drawn to these two real historical events that changed so many lives, and really events that bring into question both human error and the whole notion of fate and being in a particular place at a particular time. In both of those accidents, when you read about them, you come to this catalog of identifying marks, scars, more often objects, a particular brand of shoe or a dry cleaning tag or a note in someone's pocket. And these were the ways that loved ones often discovered news or the story of what had happened. And it was so moving to me to read these lists of lives and the way they were identified and kind of reduced to these everyday objects that we don't think about buttoning this shirt, or at that time people might have worn cufflinks or putting on a necklace, and yet all of these objects in the aftermath of such an event are completely intimate, and they tell the story of one very specific life.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you mentioned as part of Frank's narrative that he, being a professor, taught a class called Skeletons in the Closet, which was about the bones of what survives through biological investigations. So that's speaks of what you're just thinking about.
Yes, his career path and years teaching archaeology courses, I think informed a lot of the way I looked at the setting of the novel and the way these lives overlap and the way that the history behind each person can't help but influence the present.
Well, you also, I mean, one of the things I thought, I'm a parent and now a grandparent, and, you said through Lil's reminiscing, as parents, we pack your bags and strap them to your little backs before you're even old enough to carry them. Then you have to spend the rest of your life unpacking and figuring it all out.
I do believe that's true. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to make my phone not ding. But I do believe that is totally true.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, sometimes it's referred to as therapy, but I think through journaling and writing, we can actually unpick, as you've done, you've actually deconstructed and then you reconstruct over the course of the novel Hieroglyphics, these lives, and like you said, the intimate details that many of which are internal to each character, but all we see as people that interweave with them are the external behaviors or artifacts that they have around them. And that's frankly the story of all of our lives, isn't it?
I think so. We all have little favorite things, or I was thinking of hieroglyphics in the beginning as, of course, being language and all the ways we share a kind of shorthand with people we're close to, where one word might bring to mind a particular story and everybody laughs, or the kinds of notes that we leave for one another that get abbreviated along the way. But I realized as I was working that it also came to represent objects in our lives that symbolize a particular time, or the way, we travel someplace and you pick up a rock